Welcome back to the Get Fit Talk podcast. In this episode, we're tackling one of the most popular supplements in fitness, creatine. You've heard the hype: more strength, more energy, better performance. But what's the real science? Today, we'll break down the myths, explain the benefits, and show you how creatine can become a powerful tool in your fitness journey. Let's jump in.
Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're cutting through the noise on a supplement most people think they know but maybe don't fully understand: creatine. You might immediately picture, gym locker rooms, bulging biceps. But what if I told you that's just like a tiny piece of its really fascinating story? We've pulled together a pretty solid stack of sources. We've got scientific reviews, health publications, even insights from top fitness channels to really unpack what creatine is, what it does, and maybe why it's far more relevant to your overall health, your well-being, than you ever imagined. Our mission today is to sort of transform your understanding of this thing.
Yeah, it's quite striking, actually, how creatine's public image has often overshadowed its genuine scientific versatility. So today we're aiming to go beyond those common narratives, challenge some misconceptions, and really reveal the surprising benefits that go way past just athletic performance. We want to equip you with, clear, actionable insights, make you genuinely well-informed about this supplement.
That sounds great, especially with all the misinformation floating around, right? So with that mission set, where do we even begin to unravel the true story of creatine? Let's maybe start right at the beginning. Creatine often gets, lumped into conversations with things like steroids, which, as our sources show, is a huge misconception. So fundamentally, what is creatine?
Right, so creatine is a natural organic compound. Let's be really clear. It's not a steroid. Our bodies actually make it mostly in the liver, kidneys, and pancreas. And it uses 3 amino acids: arginine, glycine, and methionine. It's mainly stored in our muscles, and interestingly, our brain, too, its core job, helping our cells produce energy.
Okay, energy production. That mechanism sounds pretty efficient. Can you walk us through that, like the cellular dance that makes it such a powerful energy booster?
Absolutely. If we zoom into the cellular level, what creatine does is significantly boost our muscle stores of something called phosphocreatine. You can think of phosphocreatine as like a rapidly rechargeable battery pack for your cells. So when your muscles work hard, they use adenosine triphosphate ATP for energy.
Right.
As that ATP breaks down, phosphocreatine jumps in to quickly regenerate it. That lets you sustain those high-intensity efforts for longer. Basically, the speed of that ATP regeneration directly limits how long you can perform at your absolute maximum.
Wow, so it's like a turbocharger for your body's own energy system. That's a really helpful analogy. And it makes me wonder, given how vital this energy cycle is, are we getting enough of this turbo fuel naturally from what we eat? Or is supplementation often, needed?
That's a really key point. While you do find creatine in foods, particularly red meat and seafood, the amounts are often quite low. For instance, like a whole pound of herring, which is a pretty rich source, only gives you about 3.8 grams. 6 ounces of steak, that's maybe 0.7 grams. So a lot of people, especially vegetarians, or even just people on a standard Western diet, probably aren't getting enough from food alone to hit the levels needed for all the benefits we're going to talk about.
Okay. So we get it as an energy booster. Now, for years, like we said, creatine's main reputation has been about muscle growth, athletic performance. What are the real benefits there, and who sees them? Is it just for pros?
Well, creatine is definitely one of the most popular and frankly most effective supplements for building muscle and strength. And the benefits are pretty widespread. It helps muscle cells in a few ways. It increases the water content inside the cells. That's called cell volumization, which gives a quick boost to muscle size, kind of that pumped look initially. But it also enhances the actual formation of proteins that build muscle fibers. And it can even raise levels of IGF-1, that's insulin-like growth factor 1, a hormone that promotes muscle mass. And there's even some interesting research suggesting it might decrease myostatin, which is a molecule that normally puts the brakes on muscle growth.
That's a lot going on at the cellular level. So how does that translate into what someone would actually feel or see in their performance?
Right. And what's really compelling, I think, is that its impact isn't just for elite athletes. Our sources are pretty consistent on this. Creatine significantly improves high-intensity exercise performance, really regardless of where someone's starting from fitness-wise.
Okay.
We're talking benefits like better strength, more explosive power, improved sprintability, muscle endurance. Basically, you resist fatigue better and recover faster.
No.
One big review actually noted up to a 15% improvement in high-intensity exercise performance. That's substantial.
15%. So whether you're a serious athlete pushing limits or just someone trying to, get fitter in your daily life, it
Yeah.
can offer a real noticeable edge. Do we have any specific numbers, something to really put that into perspective?
Absolutely. Studies show that even just taking creatine for 5 to 7 days can lead to a significant increase in lean body weight and muscle size. Initially, yeah, that's mostly the water retention in the cells, but over the long term, it definitely helps with actual muscle fiber growth. There was one study, a 6-week training program. The participants using creatine gained, on average, about 4.4 pounds. That's 2 kilos more muscle mass than the group that didn't take it. And for strength, gains of 5 to 15% over, say, 4 to 12 weeks are pretty common. So imagine someone squatting 300 pounds. They could potentially add 15 to 45 pounds to their squat.
Wow. Okay. So creatine clearly gives a major boost to physical performance. But you mentioned the brain earlier, and this is where I think it gets really surprising for many people. Its reach extends into, like, our cognition, our overall health. Let's peel back that layer. What did the sources reveal about the brain connection?
It's actually quite remarkable how much creatine contributes to brain health. You see, just like our muscles, the brain is incredibly energy hungry. It demands a huge amount of ATP, especially during difficult mental tasks. So, creatine supplements can increase those phosphocreatine stores in the brain, helping it produce more ATP right where it's needed for thinking. And beyond just energy, there's evidence it might also boost dopamine levels and improve mitochondrial function, which both contribute to better cognitive function overall.
That's fascinating. A direct energy link for thinking. Are there specific groups or situations where this cognitive boost seems particularly noticeable?
Yeah, a key takeaway from the data seems to be in specific populations. For older adults, for example, supplementing with creatine for just 2 weeks was shown to significantly improve memory and recall. And for vegetarians who, like we said, often have lower baseline creatine levels because they don't eat meat, one study showed a really striking 20 to 50% improvement on some memory and intelligence tests. It really suggests that if your starting point is lower, the impact of supplementing can be even more significant.
20 to 50%. That's huge. So it's not just about, say, thinking faster, but maybe also fighting off that feeling of being mentally drained or even physically tired.
Precisely. The research suggests creatine supplements can significantly reduce feelings of fatigue and tiredness, both mental and physical. There was a 6-month study, quite compelling, on people with traumatic brain injury. They found a 50% reduction in dizziness, and fatigue dropped dramatically, from 80% of the group reporting it down to just 10% in the group taking creatine. It's also been shown to help maintain energy levels during sleep deprivation, something many of us can relate to, and reduce fatigue when exercising in the heat.
Okay, this is pushing beyond just general wellness. It makes me wonder about creatine's potential role as maybe a neuroprotectant. Can it help with more serious neurological conditions?
Yes, there's certainly promising research in that area, although some of it's still in early stages, or using animal models, so we need to be a bit cautious. For instance, creatine showed beneficial effects in mice with Parkinson's disease, preventing about 90% of the usual drop in dopamine levels. Now, we still need more direct human evidence for that specific effect, but in humans who already have Parkinson's, combining creatine with weight training actually improves strength and daily function more than just weight training alone. It also shows promise in potentially helping with other neurological diseases, things like Huntington's, where it helped restore phosphocreatine and reduce cell death in mice. And it's being explored for Alzheimer's, ischemic stroke, epilepsy, even brain and spinal cord injuries. For ALS, some animal studies showed better motor function, less muscle loss, and even extended survival by about 17%, though admittedly human studies on ALS progression have had mixed results so far. But the underlying theme seems to be its role in cellular energy supply and maybe protecting cells under stress.
And you mentioned blood sugar, too. That really covers a wide spectrum, doesn't it? From muscles to brain to metabolism.
It truly does. Yeah, the research suggests creatine can help lower blood sugar levels. It seems to do this by improving the function of something called GLUT4. GLUT4 is the molecule that acts like a gatekeeper, transporting sugar from your blood into your muscles. One 12-week study showed that people who combined creatine with exercise had better blood sugar control after eating a high-carb meal compared to the group who only exercised. So it points towards benefits for metabolic health, too.
Okay, energy, strength, brain power, blood sugar. The versatility is genuinely impressive. And speaking of areas often overlooked, many people probably still think of this as a guy supplement. But our sources highlighted some really unique, potentially significant benefits specifically for women, and also its role across our entire lifespan. What did you find there?
Yeah, that's a really important point. It's noteworthy that women, on average, tend to have lower natural creatine levels than men. So theoretically, supplementation could be even more impactful for them. It seems to play a role in supporting hormonal health, too. The natural shifts in estrogen and progesterone during a woman's cycle can actually impact creatine levels. And we've seen reports from female athletes suggesting creatine helps improve their performance and recovery, particularly during certain phases of their menstrual cycle.
Interesting. So it might help kind of buffer some of those hormonal fluctuations and their effects. What about later in life, especially for women post-menopause?
That's another key area. For postmenopausal individuals, combining creatine with resistance training has been shown to improve bone mineral density and overall strength. This is really crucial for helping to counteract age-related bone loss osteoporosis. And it works synergistically with its known benefits for building and maintaining muscle mass, which also tends to decline with age. That condition is called sarcopenia. So it's like a powerful combination strategy for healthier aging, targeting both muscle and bone.
A real 1-2 punch, as you said. That's significant. And I understand there's even emerging research linking it to very current health challenges.
Absolutely. There was a recent study just in 2023 that found taking 4 grams of creatine daily for 6 months significantly improved symptoms like brain fog and concentration difficulties in patients recovering from long COVID. And the researchers specifically noted that women who seem to be more prone to long COVID and also have slightly different creatine metabolism might actually respond even better. It really highlights its broad therapeutic potential.
Wow. And this leads to a bigger question, maybe about creatine's role right from the very start of life. Are we finding out it's important across the whole human life cycle?
It seems that way. New research is actively looking into creatine's role across the entire lifespan, literally from conception onwards. It's being found to be critical for things like sperm motility, the development of the uterus and placenta, fetal growth, and it's even present in breast milk. There's also some suggestion that creatine might help protect unborn babies from periods of low oxygen in the womb, acting sort of like that spare battery for vital tissues. However, and this is really important to stress, direct human safety studies on taking creatine supplements during pregnancy are still lacking. So consulting with a doctor is absolutely essential there. But interestingly, early calculations are even suggesting specific daily creatine intake recommendations for infants up to 12 months old. It really does seem to be a foundational compound for life.
Okay, so we've covered the incredible benefits, muscles, brain, overall health, lifespan. But now let's finally tackle the elephant in the room, the myths. The absolute biggest one has got to be, is creatine a steroid? Let's just put that to bed.
Yes, let's. That is definitely the most common misconception, and it's crucial to make the distinction crystal clear. Creatine is absolutely 100% not a steroid. Anabolic steroids are synthetic versions of hormones, like testosterone. They work by binding to specific receptors in your cells and actually changing DNA expression to force muscle growth, often with significant side effects. Creatine, on the other hand, doesn't do that at all. It simply provides more readily available energy fuel, that ATP regeneration we talk about, to your cells. Think of it like adding a better battery pack, not rewriting the machine's code. So while they might both lead to increased size and strength, the way they do it, the magnitude of the effect, the side effect profile, and their legal status are worlds apart. Creatine is an over-the-counter supplement, generally recognized as safe GRAS by the FDA, with decades of research backing its safety. Steroids are controlled substances.
Right. Totally different mechanisms, totally different risk profile. So no risk of accidentally, transforming overnight or getting into legal trouble. What about the hair loss fear? That one pops up a lot.
Yes, the hair loss, Fleth. Look, the evidence for creatine causing hair loss just isn't there. This often stems from that same confusion with anabolic steroids, which can impact hair loss. There was one study back in 2009, often cited, involving rugby players. It showed slightly elevated levels of DHT that's a byproduct of testosterone, sometimes linked to male pattern baldness. But, and this is the crucial part, the study observed no actual hair loss in the players taking creatine. Plus, intense exercise itself can raise DHT levels naturally. It's really a classic example of correlation being mistaken for causation. Honestly, stressing out about whether creatine causes hair loss might be more likely to cause stress-related hair thinning than the supplement itself.
Okay, good to clarify that one. Another huge worry people have is kidney damage. What's the real story there? Is there any truth to it?
This is another really important one, and it comes down to a basic misunderstanding, confusing two similar-sounding words, creatine and creatinine. Creatinine with the 9 at the end is a waste product. It's formed naturally when creatine breaks down in your muscles and your kidneys filter it out of your blood. That's their job. So when you take creatine supplements, you have more creatine in your system. Naturally, more of it gets broken down. leading to slightly higher levels of creatinine in your blood tests. This does not mean your kidneys are damaged or failing. It simply means they're doing their job, filtering out a slightly higher amount of this normal byproduct because there's more of the precursor creatine around. It's an expected finding.
Ah, I see. So higher creatinine is just a marker of having taken creatine, not a sign of kidney failure itself. But what if someone already has existing kidney problems?
That's the critical distinction. If you have pre-existing kidney disease, yes, you absolutely should talk to your doctor before even considering creatine. That's standard advice for any supplement with kidney issues. But for healthy individuals, long-term studies, some going up to 5 years with doses around 10 grams daily, consistently show it's safe for kidney function. That said, it's always wise to remember supplements aren't regulated like prescription drugs by the FDA. So choosing products that are third-party tested, look for seals like NSF or consumerlab.com, is a good move. It helps ensure you're getting what the label says and that it's free from contaminants.
Good practical advice. Okay, what about cramping and dehydration? You mentioned it pulls water into muscle cells, so it kind of sounds like it could cause dehydration, doesn't it?
It does sound a bit counterintuitive, I agree, but the research actually tends to show the opposite, that creatine may have protective effects against cramping and dehydration, especially when people are exercising in hot conditions. The key thing really is just to maintain good hydration practices overall, which you should be doing anyway if you're exercising or supplementing. A reasonable rule of thumb some people use is to drink about 12 ounces of water for every 5 grams of creatine taken, just to be sure.
Makes sense. Just stay hydrated. Are there any other significant precautions or potential interactions people should know about?
Yes, a few things to keep in mind. While generally very safe, as we've discussed, some sources do advise caution or avoidance during pregnancy and breastfeeding, mainly because there just isn't enough specific safety data in those populations yet. There's also a theoretical concern it might worsen mania in individuals with bipolar disorder, so caution is warranted there. And then there's caffeine. Some research suggests that very high doses of caffeine taken concurrently might potentially counteract some of creatine's benefits or cause stomach upset for some. And specifically for people with Parkinson's disease, that combination of caffeine and creatine might potentially worsen symptoms, so that particular combo should be approached with extra caution in that group.
Okay, good points to be aware of. So wrapping this all up practically, what does this mean for someone listening who's now thinking, okay, maybe I should consider creatine? If they decide to try it, how should they go about it?
Right. Well, the first thing is the form. The most researched, most recommended, and usually the most cost-effective form is creatine monohydrate. It's widely available and has decades of study behind it.
Monohydrate. Got it. And dosage. I've heard people talk about loading phases. Is that necessary?
Good question. For most healthy adults, a simple maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day is effective and recommended. If someone is significantly larger, say over 200 pounds, some experts might suggest bumping that up slightly, maybe to 7-10 grams per day, but 3-5 grams works for most. Now, the loading phase, taking about 20-25 grams per day split into smaller doses for the first 5-7 days, is completely optional. It just saturates your muscle stores faster. You'll reach the same saturation level by just taking the 3 to 5 grams daily. It'll just take a bit longer, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. The end result is identical. Loading just speeds up the initial phase.
So patience or speed, your choice. What about timing? Does it matter if you take it before workout, after, morning, night?
You know, what's interesting here is that the research suggests consistency is far more important than specific timing. As long as you take your daily dose consistently, day in and day out, to keep those muscle stores topped up, it doesn't really matter when you take it. Morning, pre-workout, post-workout, evening, whatever fits your routine best is fine. Just be consistent.
Consistency over timing. Makes sense. And do you need to cycle it? Like take breaks from it the way people sometimes do with other supplements?
Nope. Cycling isn't necessary for creatine. Those long-term studies we mentioned show that continuous, consistent use is safe and effective for healthy individuals. No need to cycle on and off.
Okay. And quickly, what about all those other fancy forms of creatine you see advertised sometimes? Creatine HCl, ethyl ester, etc. Are they any better?
Yeah, you do see others marketed. Creatine hydrochloride, or HCl, is probably the most common alternative. It's marketed as being more soluble in water and maybe more absorbable, potentially allowing for slightly lower doses, like 2-3 grams. However, HCl is usually quite a bit more expensive than monohydrate, and it can have a very, very sour taste if you take it straight. Some people do report fewer minor stomach issues, like bloating, with HCl compared to monohydrate. Maybe about 15% of people get mild bloating with monohydrate, but from a mechanistic standpoint, once it gets into your system, all these forms ultimately aim to increase creatine stores in the muscle.
Monohydrate just has the overwhelming weight of scientific evidence and is cost-effective. It remains the gold standard for most people.
Got it. Monohydrate is generally the way to go. So, what does this all really mean for you, the listener? We've taken a really deep dive into creatine today. We've seen it's a compound far more complex, far more broadly beneficial than that narrow gym bro reputation suggests. We've busted some major myths. It's definitely not a steroid. It's highly unlikely to cause hair loss or kidney damage in healthy people. And its impact is incredible, stretching from boosting athletic performance, sure, but also enhancing brain function, fighting fatigue, offering unique support for women throughout their lives, and even potentially aiding recovery from things like long COVID.
Yeah, and if we try to connect this to the really big picture, when you look at creatine's widespread benefits across the entire human lifespan, from its apparent importance in fetal development and infancy, right through to supporting healthy muscle and bone and aging, and maybe even helping combat modern health issues like long COVID. And you combine that with the evidence that many, many people probably aren't getting optimal amounts just from their diet alone. It really does raise a profound question, doesn't it? Should creatine perhaps eventually be considered something like a semi-essential nutrient by public health bodies? Maybe similar to how we think about certain vitamins, it seems to be this incredibly powerful, yet often misunderstood and underappreciated tool for overall health and well-being.
That is a truly thought-provoking way to frame it, a potential shift in perspective. Well, with this deep dive, hopefully you feel equipped now with a more factual, a more nuanced understanding of creatine that, frankly, most people miss out on. We really hope this empowers you to make informed decisions about your own health, your curiosity. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.